It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
One just has to pick up a magazine or turn on a television to see that we as women are bombarded daily with daily images of female physical perfection, setting up the most unrealistic of expectations as to how we should look. No wonder female body confidence is falling while incidents of eating disorders are on the rise. What's more alarming is the way this affects young girls. A reduced sense of self-worth can create anxiety, stress, even depression, causing relationship issues while potentially impairing academic and job performance. In direct contrast, my podcast, Confidence in Bloom, is designed to reinforce the truth and reassure every woman who has ever felt inadequate, unworthy, or tossed aside because of how she looks that no matter her age, shape, or background, you matter. You are enough now. I, Tina Spolatini, a woman of substance, insist women deserve to be happy, confident, successful, and totally in love with themselves in their own bodies, just the way they are. Through an ongoing series of intriguing conversations with women from all walks of life who are all extraordinary in their own right, we will embark upon a journey of ultimate self-acceptance and empowerment. Together we'll share the stories, laugh, learn, maybe even shed a few tears when it becomes clear just how far women have come to realize how wonderful life is when you stand in your own power, feeling fantastic in your own skin. Today I'm speaking with Liz Gieslin. I have rented lips today. A lifelong entrepreneur focused on serving others, making health a priority in order to thrive well into midlife and beyond. Welcome, Liz.
Hi. Thank you so much, Tina, for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. Your bio was very brief, a lifelong entrepreneur focused on serving others. I love that. I love your energy. When I visited with you, you have I just loved your energy. So I want you to explain a little bit more on how you, what your entrepreneurship has been in the past and what it is now.
Okay, great. Well, actually, my entrepreneurial journey started when I was 9. I was born a horse-crazy little girl, and I was very fortunate that my parents, after me pestering the daylights out of them, agreed that when I was 11, if I had saved my money, now mind you, I was 9, so it wasn't like I really had a job, but that they would match whatever I saved, and then we would look at, that I could buy a horse. So I got busy. I started mowing lawns. I went on bottle drives, which, of course, I'm dating myself because, Tina, I'm sure that you're not old enough to remember when pop bottles actually could bring in money. But so we lived in a little neighborhood in Santa Maria, California, and it took me 2 years, but right before my 11th birthday, I had saved $125. And I knew that a horse could be purchased for $250 because I kept my eye on the newspaper all the time. And my parents kept their promise, and we went horse shopping, and I found my first horse, Echo. And then from there, I'll try to keep this part short, but from there they said, okay, well, now you have a horse. And we'll help take care of the basics, the food, the shoes, the vet, any vet needs. But if you want a new saddle or new bridle or whatever, you're going to have to figure out a way to do that on your own. So by the time I was about 13, between 13 and 14, I started giving riding lessons to the neighborhood kids on Echo. And mind you, this was when minimum wage was $1.22 an hour. And I was getting $3.50 an hour to give riding lessons on Echo. So that's really when it started, and I was very fortunate, Tina, that I was born with what I call the horse whisperer gene, and from that point forward until I was, just prior to turning 50, I made a lifelong career as a professional horse trainer. So from there, at the age of 50, I was ready to do something different. And I did a pivot. I was introduced to personal chefing. Now, mind you, it wasn't because I loved to cook, but I had gone on a health journey of my own, just, incorporating exercise, intentional exercise, because up until then I was on a horse all the time and never even crossed my mind to maybe exercise on purpose. But, I was in my, early 40s at one point and decided that, I just wanted to get healthier. So when personal chefing was introduced to me, I thought this is a way I can really serve others with helping them just eat better. And so that career is now 21 years old this year. And in 2016, I also added in a additional business with a wellness company. I'm with a different wellness company now. But it's all, really fit together beautifully for me. And it's been a wonderful journey in that through this entire process, I've been able to really have time freedom, and which for me is the real sign of true wealth. Besides just, making a good living, it's also, having the time to live. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. I hope I didn't ramble too much.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, obviously, I know our listeners would have a lot more questions because, you went from being 13 to 50. So I'm just wondering, from the age of 13 till the age of 50, your main focus was your career with horses. So you did, you called yourself the horse whisperer. Did you do healing with your horses, or was it just basically like riding lessons?
Well, basically what I guess I mean by that term is, and this is how I explain it to a lot of people, is that you can teach individuals how to do certain things with horses, but if you're really born with an innate ability to be a true communicator with a horse. And so I was in very high level competition with show horses, and so it was a very natural. It came. Well, I don't even want to. I can't really say. Well, it came easy for me. It was natural for me. I had a very natural communication with horses. So that's why I think I was so successful. And also, I did teach riders I lived in California up until I was 27, and then lived in Fort Collins, Colorado for 5 years, and then I've been here in Indiana since 1986. But so I lived a very long career making my living the whole time I was single, and then again when I was married with in the horse industry, which, and also as I was getting older, and actually from the time I was really in my late teens, I always knew in the back of my mind I was in a career that really just depended on recreational money. In all reality, if every horse disappeared from the face of the earth, life really would continue to go on, except for those that, of course, that are making their living full time in it. So it was the right time for me to pivot at the age I was basically, it was 49 when I started my personal chef business. I'll be 70 this August. And I've just been, it's been so rewarding being able to have the personal growth that I've had, and also moving into businesses now that are really genuinely helping others.
I love that. I've heard so many things with horses, being able to communicate through them and how they help people, sort of come out of their shell if they need it, or if they have healing, it kind of makes them go within, right? I've heard that. So that's awesome, because you learned that. I mean, you obviously, had that natural talent to, be able to communicate with them. And it was probably because you were in love with them at such a young age, right? It's like, if you don't like animals, you're not going to be able to be calm and confident beside them.
Right. I think that, it wasn't unusual, at least back when I was a little girl growing up, that you were either born a horse-crazy little girl or you just were afraid of them and didn't want to have anything to do with them. It was rare, I think, that there was an in-between. So, I wasn't really an unusual kid back then. But, and as far as the communication goes, I think a lot of it, for me, yes, you're right, that horses can be extremely therapeutic. In fact, TheraPlay, which is I don't know that it's nationally known now, but the woman that started TheraPlay, which is a therapeutic riding program, started her program out of our barn in Carmel, Indiana, some time ago. But the kind of communication, particularly that I had, was the skill to really purchase a prospect. I mean, back in the early 80s, to be able to simplify it is, how people flip houses, is I was buying young prospects, training them and reselling them and making huge profits because I had the talent to be able to recognize the ability in a young horse for the kind of discipline that I trained, which was for Western pleasure, show Western pleasure. And so I, made a very good living doing that. And of course, the market would go up and down. Sometimes, it wasn't as good, but that's where my real talent, lied, was was having that ability to recognize a horse's natural ability and being able to bring out the best in that animal.
That sounds so difficult. I'm not.
It's a lot of work, Tina.
It sounds like it. I've seen, movies and, they're training the horses and it really looks difficult. When you have like a wild horse to tame it so that people can actually, sit on it and whether they're using it for work or whatever, but there's a lot of work that goes into that and physical work. Right. It's not just, you need to listen to me like a child, right? Like you have to, like you're going to get hurt. I'm sure you have many injuries.
Well, I actually, for the amount of time I was around them, really not many. But there's, yes, they can be, a horse's only defense is to flee. They're not horses. They're not by nature aggressive. They're going to, when there's danger, their defense is to run away, to flee. So, and they're very smart, but they're very smart at being horses, not people. And I think that's quite often when horse trainers or people trying to do things with horses and expect them to have the same reaction or respond as a human, or sometimes even worse as a dog, because, dogs, they have true affection for people. And a horse, yes, owners can sometimes think, the horse, quote unquote, loves them. And yes, they can show comfort and everything, but, their brain is the size of a walnut. It's not very big. But they're very, very smart at being horses. And it's just learning to think like a horse, really, to get the most out of them, is understanding where their fears are, but they're a very trainable animal.
I love that. It's funny that you say it like that they're, good at being horses, right?
Right.
I think as humans, we expect our animals to be more like us. Like I catch myself saying, I have a cat and a dog, and I catch myself saying, where's my people? Like to them.
Right.
And I got these two little beautiful faces looking up at me like, hello? And I'm like, I'm talking to you, right? And then I'm like, wait a minute, they're not people. Like, am I crazy or, like it just comes out of my mouth like that. So I think I can see your point there. Like we sort of assume that they're going to begin to think like we do.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're working with them. Wow.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm not a huge animal lover. I don't dislike animals, but I'm terrified of anything bigger than, taller than my knees.
Right. Well, you're not alone. I'm sure there's quite a few people that that's not unusual, Tina.
No, I know it's not. I really want to talk about confidence and how, over the years, I'm sure you've seen where your confidence has sort of, ebbed and flowed, gone up and gone down. And I'd like to know, when you're down at your bottom, where that was for you and how you felt and how you were, sort of dealing with that. And then what did you do to bring that back up?
Well, fortunately, I was born with the glass is always at least half full. In fact, it's funny, my mother has a saying that and I don't think that she made this up, but she said, Liz, you were always the little girl that if there was manure, you'd say there must be a pony. And so I think that it came, I think, very natural for me, Tina, that, and I have to say that, my parents, I'm not going to say that they were sitting there being huge cheerleaders behind me, having to give me the confidence. I was always extremely independent, and I was so focused on what I wanted to do that I think that was a real blessing because I just stayed so focused. And I think that very first experience of saving up the money, getting what I wanted, which was the horse, from that point forward, I knew that anything is possible if you want something bad enough. And so that is, you just keeping that in mind. And, I know that, it is probably more often than not that there are those downturns in people's lives. And I think for me, I can't even say that it was necessarily a low point, but it was a point when I was ready to give up the horses, and I thought, okay, I'm ready to do something different. Gee, I wonder what that's going to look like, seeing that, A, I didn't go to college, B, I've never worked for anybody else. But what I did is I think I just left myself open to accept ideas, and when that idea came across, and it wasn't even that I was being introduced to personal chefing as an idea for something I do, I was introduced to it, and then I just got curious, and then I thought, this might be something that I can really do. And I literally learned on the job when I started that. So to answer your question about confidence, I think it was I just wasn't afraid to try something new. I thought, and I think I had gone through enough different challenges through the horse career in very, very stiff competition. When I was showing, I was one of the only women in a class of maybe 35 or 40 men. It was a very male-dominated industry at the time I was competing. And so I think that I just kept the confidence in myself and just believed in what I was doing and worked hard.
Yeah, I think the working hard, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. I think in order for you to stay focused and work hard, you need to believe in what you're doing, right? Because working hard, we all have to work hard, right? It doesn't matter. Working hard doesn't have to be physical, right? It's just basically consistency, dedication, and, focus, right? So if you can keep your focus, you're going to do what has to be done. I love how I'm taking lots of notes here. I love how, if anything is possible if you want it bad enough. We all know that, don't we? It's because it's not about the money.
So. Right, exactly. That's for me is that I didn't focus on, this is, I'm doing this strictly for the money. I think that's, and I've had, spoken with other women entrepreneurs just getting going. I thought, when you focus on just doing good, doing what is driving you to do it, the money is going to follow right behind it. The money is going to take care of itself. But if you focus on the only reason for doing it is for the money, then I think it just takes the the passion out of it. And not that every day you're just filled with all this get up and go and you know, I'm such a Mel Robbins advocate. In fact, I've been called her voice double, by the way, is that, you know, we can't wait to be motivated to do things that we know need to be done. You know, it's just, and that's just life. And so it, like you said, it's, you know, everything does take hard work, but when you can see how you're making a difference, whether it's, you know, for another person, your family, yourself, whatever, I think that it makes the journey, you know, what it's all about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, you know, everyone has different things that you're, like right now you're working on. Now I know you're still a personal chef, but you're focusing more on your wellness company. Am I right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Which
like
I'm
you
just
still
so
do some cooking.
About.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So I would love to have a personal chef. I do not like cooking.
You're not alone.
I know. It's so funny because, I mean, you know, I'm Italian, and so, you know, cooking should come so natural to me, or at least that's what, you know, most people seem to believe, but it doesn't come natural to me, right?
Right.
Now, my dad loves to cook. He didn't always, right? Because obviously he was working and he worked, you know, construction. So my mom did all the cooking. My mom's not Italian, she's German, right? But she sort of integrated her German into Italian, and her food is, you know, I mean, I think she's an excellent cook, but she doesn't like cooking that much either. So obviously that's something that I've taken from her. But my dad loves it, and I think, my God, how do you stay focused long enough? Or, you know, he's in his late 70s now, and I think, my God, when is it going to happen for me?
Well, you're not alone, Tina. There's, you know, in fact, that's what I tell some of the people when they're trying to, you know, customers of mine trying to like make excuses that, you know, gee, I raised 3 kids. I just don't feel like cooking anymore. I said, you don't have to, you know, you don't have to apologize for it. And, you know, because you don't, just because, and I think of the old, you know, especially the olden days where everyone thought that, you know, the mother or the wife at home did the cooking. And yes, maybe it was back, you know, very common, of course, back in the 50s. I know, you know, my mom was a stay-at-home mom and she did the cooking, and that was more the norm. But I think there's probably a lot of women that were doing it that really didn't like it too, but they did it. But, you know, what's nice is that there are other options, and you don't have to then try to talk yourself into it that you really should learn to like it, because life's too short to talk yourself into that, Tina.
Right. I believe you. I do believe you. I have learned that. I have an aunt who passed away a couple years ago now, and she didn't like cooking either. But after she hit her 50s, you know, she started to like cook for my grandma a lot. And I thought, wow, she's pretty good. For someone who doesn't like cooking, she's really good. But I think, you know, when her time came, after her kids were finished, like kind of grown and on their own, she sort of, you know, had to keep herself busy. And that's what she did. And I don't know if she would, you know, ever feel confident enough to have, you know, taken a career in it, right? Like yourself. But you must have always enjoyed cooking.
Well, actually, it's kind of funny. Not really. How it all started is, you know, when my husband and we were on the road showing horses and everything, when we were first together, when I was married to my first husband and living in Fort Collins, we did some cooking, and it was sort of fun. But, you know, I was in my mid-late 20s, and but then when I got really busy with the horse business when I moved here to Indiana, and you know, got with my current husband Joe, is we were on the road a lot, and it was just convenient. We just went out all the time, and consequently, you can't control what you're eating, and so then, you know, in around 2000 and it was around 2000. I had, well, not a big health scare, but I had a little bit of a health scare. I found that I had some lumps on my thyroid. And so, and I was healthy as a horse all the time, so to speak. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll go get a physical for the first time. Well, and it turned out that I did have lumps on my thyroid. They did a needle biopsy. I did not have cancer of the thyroid, but I had a non-functioning thyroid. And it was at that point that I thought I had put on some weight, not bad, but I thought, you know what, I just want to get my health in better shape. And so at that point, that's when I decided to start cooking at home. And of course, Joe's like, wow, this is kind of good. So, I just learned to modify recipes, and so that's how it was very natural. When personal chefing was introduced to me in 2002, a couple years later, I thought, okay, I'm already sort of modifying recipes. Maybe this is a way that I can really serve others with just making better food. And so, and literally, though, I learned my skill set as on the job, so to speak, while I was started my personal chef business. And what I tried to do too, Tina, is when I was first starting, before when I literally hung my shingle, so to speak, in February of 2023, I didn't get my first client until May of 2023. But in between that point, I was doing something every day to work on growing my business, whether it was learning some better skills, or I was and this is way before Facebook and groups and all of that, but there was a forum that I got involved with, a personal chef forum, where I met other chefs, got ideas from them about packaging. So I was always trying to grow myself personally, business-wise. So I was doing something every day to help my business grow one way or the other. And so consequently, it just kept, and then I marketed to personal chefs because their clientele were also people that were trying to maybe get healthier, working out. And so the personal trainers were serving basically maybe the same kind of audience that I wanted to serve. So I really nurtured relationships with personal trainers and brought them food samples and, did that sort of thing to just create those connections. And then one thing led to another, and it wasn't very long. Really, after the first year I was in business, all of my future clients really came from referrals. And then it just snowballed from there. Because as you know, in anything, your customer base is really, they're the ones that are going to toot your horn the best.
Right. Yeah, referrals are your best compliment, right? Yeah,
yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
So so personal chef, you were doing this out of your house then. You didn't have a rented kitchen or a restaurant kitchen where you would go and do your cooking.
Well, the first 9 years, about the first 8 years, I cooked in my clients' homes, meaning that I would then pack up. I literally would just have a key or a code to get in their house. Most of the time they were at work, they were not at home, and I would bring all of my own cooking utensils, obviously the food, the packaging material, cook everything, package it, put it in their freezer and or fridge, some of each or whatever, and then pack up, clean up, and go home. And it was really a couple of times we were, we still had horses at the time that we were doing this. We had slowed down in the showing business and we're in the breeding business. So I wasn't busy really doing a whole lot with the horses, but still had them. And there were a couple of times when we'd have bad weather. And I would have to call my client and say, we've got a bunch of snow coming down. I think I'm just going to go ahead. I'll cook all your meals here, package them, freeze them, and I'll deliver them tomorrow or the next day, depending on weather. Well, over the course of, several months, it happened here and there. Of course, these are clients that I've been cooking for on a regular basis, like every 2 weeks or once a month or every 3 weeks. They're on a schedule. And pretty soon, most of them would say, well, Liz, why don't you just do that all the time? So that's how it morphed into then me doing it in my own home. I have an auxiliary freezer and refrigerator for my clients' food. And it's actually been more convenient for them and for me because I can give them a wider selection of things to choose from because, for example, if somebody wanted pick two things that took an exorbitant amount of time, let's say in the oven. Let's say like a pot roast that's going to take 3 hours on low, and they have a single oven and they've chosen something else that also would take oven time. I'd have to have them select something different, where now out of my home, I can then spread it out and say, okay, today I'm going to make these 3 things for them, and then tomorrow I'll make these 2, because I can stagger the time. They have no limitations now as far as due to the cooking setup in their home, which is really great. So, and I have quite a few clients that, honestly, if it meant that I had to come into their house to cook, they probably wouldn't have used my service. It's just because of their lifestyle, that wouldn't have been appealing to them. Fortunately for me in the very beginning, that was, everybody was totally game with it. But then and I still have, several clients that I've been cooking for the entire duration I've been in business. So, so it's been, it's morphed and changed, and, it started out, I have a core service that I do, but of course I've done everything and every kind of variation of it over the years too.
I love that. Honestly, I wish you could come cook for me. You're a little far, right? But like it just sounds like, and over time, like you said, you've sort of perfected it over the years, and now it's convenient for you and your clients. You could cook, if you know that you're going to be busy, something comes up and you're going to be busy on your normal, working day, you can rearrange it, because you don't have to be with your client, in your client's home. You can arrange it so that, I'll just, get up a couple hours earlier, or, whatever.
Right.
But you're in your own home,
exactly.
You can make it work. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes, it's worked out great. It's worked out great.
Yeah, and I love how, like you said, you did something every day to grow your business. That's something every entrepreneur, needs to be told to do, right? Because we all, nobody knows everything about running a business, right? It doesn't matter how many years you've been in, because every business is going to be different, right? All the clients are different. Everything is different about every business.
Yes.
I'd like to know, how that felt for you. You're part of that focus group, or I forget what you called it, but you were part of that group that you could share recipes and share ideas and all that stuff. That must have been connection is the number one thing for all humans, but that must have been really, what's the word I'm looking for? Motivating for you, right? Because you're getting all these ideas, and you're obviously here to serve. So, maybe let's talk about that for a minute or two.
Right. Well, actually, I think it was early. I look at all there's so much available now for people to either through, either different coaches, different groups, different, just look at, how we met. There's so many things now available for someone to get involved in that either helps keep them inspired, or having other conversations with, other like-minded people. And it was just, fortunately, the United States Personal Chef Association that was, that I had joined when I started my chef business. That's where they had the forum. And, it was like, looking back now, it'd be like if you had a DOS program on your computer instead of Windows. It was so, looking at how much has changed. I was just thinking about this the other day, how much technology has changed since I first started doing anything. I'm like before the cell phone era, so it's just, it's changed so much. And I just think that and in a way too, it's a little bit, social media, it has, I'm so grateful for it most of the time. At the same time, it can be a real distraction, I think, for a lot of people. So it's, I think, looking at how you can be purposeful, yet still be entertained, and keeping everything, like anything in life, keeping everything in balance. But, and you know what, the other thing too, Tina, is it's not everyone cut out to be an entrepreneur. I mean, it just isn't for everybody. And there's the comfort of knowing exactly where maybe a paycheck is coming from, or is that is a very that's probably the mainstream. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's something that I have never experienced, and I look at, family members that, we have to revolve things around if they can get off work. And up until my sister was retired, she was a concert violist, and we would want to schedule a time to go visit her. It was always around, working around the work schedule. And I thought, I have never had to experience what that's like, because I've always been able to just not have that as an issue. So, so back to about the groups and everything, I think finding and being careful and being, I think, very protective about I don't know if the word is protective, but being selective with the kind of people you want to be associated with. I mean, that, there's, I don't know if it's Jim Rohn, I think, that said, we end up being the average of the 5 people we spend the most time around. Well, those people can be, people that you're listening to podcasts to, like Mel Robbins or Kristen Voss, or, anybody that is, being forward-thinking, positive, that resonates with you. That's who you want to have in your circle, is somebody that's going to continue to help either lift you up, inspire you to take action with your life.
I agree 100%. And I was actually going to ask you, to give some kind of advice about women, that are starting their own business or struggling in their own business or whatever. And I think that was the advice that they need to hear. And you're right. Those 5 people that you spend the most time with don't necessarily have to be in your actual physical space. They could be
right.
Who you're listening to. And I love Mel Robbins. I listen to her. Unfortunately, I don't listen to her every day, but I could, right? But I pass on her podcast to anybody I can, because I think that she has good motivation to spread, right? She has she's amazing. And for a minute there, I actually thought I was listening to one of her podcasts, because you're right, you are a double to her voice. And I was like, oh no, I'm in the middle of my own podcast.
I know, it's funny. Well, it was
funny.
Yeah, so I think you'll appreciate this. Yesterday, a young lady that was actually, I was the lead for a women's networking group here in Indiana right before COVID called Evolve, and I was the lead for Evolve, and I had asked this woman, Michelle, who was in the insurance business, to be on the leadership team and everything, and I've kept in touch with her over the years, but, our paths haven't crossed recently, but she reached out the other day and wanted to come over to, she lives on the south side of Indy now, quite a ways south, but she's up on Tuesday. She's up here doing some networking and has meetings up here. So she scheduled a time specifically to come and tell me that at that time when we were in Evolve together, how I shared with her about Mel Robbins and her book, and how I really encouraged her. And she said, Liz, at the time, it really it wasn't resonating with me with where I was in my life. And she said, I had to come and tell you in person how much you've impacted me because you shared that with me. She goes, she has helped me now so much because she just bought her own franchise in a insurance company. So she's really taken a big entrepreneurial leap, which is great. And I thought that was so awesome that she took the time to want to come and tell me that in person, not just in an email or not tell me at all. And we just had a wonderful, hour time to visit together, 2 women in business, and it was great. And she's, and that's the thing, is you never know sometimes when someone, what someone's saying is just going to ring true. Or you can listen to the same thing over and over, or read the same book, and because you're at a different stage in your life, it hits you different, and you find and you get different things out of it. I mean, that's, you know, in personal development, that's the thing, is it's all of a sudden something will just ring really true that you just missed the first time around, but it was because that part of your brain wasn't tuned into it yet.
Yeah, your body and soul were just not ready to hear it, or they heard it the wrong way. Because lots of times you can hear it, you know, multiple times, each time from someone different. But then it's that one person that you seem to resonate with that will be like, oh, I get it. Okay, that makes sense. And I'm sure I've heard that before. Yeah. So what is this book that you made her read?
Well, actually the book, it was her, you know, Mel Robbins' first book was the 5-second rule. And so I think it must have been the 5-second rule, and then she's gone on to read, I forget what Mel's second book was after that, but, and I've got it, but the title is, you know, off my top of my head at the moment.
I like Mel Robbins. So, she's great.
Yeah, she really, and the thing that's so good about her, first of all, she's just unapologetically authentic and transparent, but she also is the first one to say she did a great interview with Tom Bilyeu. And in that interview, in fact, I think if you Google it, it's really worth a listen, because she just talks about how motivation is garbage and that you can't wait to be motivated to do something that you know needs to be done. Yes, it always feels better when you feel excited about doing something, but we're not always going to feel excited about doing some of the things that we know need to be done. And it's working through that thought process and telling our brain to just be quiet and then just do it.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Like, how many times, like even Nike, they have that logo, right? Just do it.
Right.
You can you can sit there and look at it, and it doesn't make you move. But then you turn around and you're like, oh, I got to go do that. Right? If you just do it, it's off your list. And I know exactly what you mean. Well, this has been awesome, Liz. I'm so happy that you joined me. I feel like I could have a conversation with you like for the rest of the day. Right?
Oh, no, thank you.
It's awesome, and I believe, and you can clear this up for me. I believe that growing up when you did and having to do everything sort of like hands-on only, and having to really search and research and over-research everything to get ahead in life, I believe that your work ethic is different than the work ethic of the people today, right? We have everything at the tips of our fingers.
Well, and that too, and, you know, I never had any children, but I've watched, different families raise children, and I think, and it's so different. I see so much enabling now, and also parents that they're giving, and I don't know if they get worn down and it just makes it easier for them. I can't answer that question, but I think that you're not doing them any favors by making it easy for them to do, then, because they don't have any value on anything. If there's, for me, I recognize the value of the work that I put in to get the horse. And I thought, so I had to mow some lawn. I mean, I was disciplined about it, but it was something that I really wanted to do. And I think when there isn't any, I look at, I don't want to get off track, but without, we've got some close adult friends that are actually older than I am, and I look at their 3 adult children, and they all have really no self-worth. And a lot of it is, and the mother actually admits this. She said, from when those kids were little, she goes, they go in and make their bed or clean up their room, but then I go in and do it over. And so it was always, and it was like, she wasn't to have it the way she wanted it. And so these, here are these adults now in their 50s, and they really have some issues, which is sad. And they, and their mother recognizes now that she didn't do them any favors, just letting them have their own self-worth. And if they wanted their room that way, it was just fine. I mean, when I was a kid, my mother said, whatever, in your bedroom is the way you want it, just keep the door closed. And I remember I was a messy kid. Now I'm over the top neat Nick. I mean, so it's just, I think that giving individuals too much, I think it devaluates what what the meaning of it, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have seen the whole, making the bed behind when they leave. I started doing that. And then I started to, look at that and say, no, you know what? If they want to climb into a messy bed, they're going to learn their way, how they want their bed to be, right? Like if I do it for them all the time, they're not going to know the rough side of the world, right? My husband, unfortunately, he goes behind them and says, no, there's wrinkles. We need to take those out, right? And so, that's just the way he was brought up, right? So, I agree with you. I really do agree that, we have to let our kids learn the hard way, right? And life now, it's getting too easy, right, for us to just do it for them or whatever, right?
Right.
Although my kids are messy, right? But I'm hoping that as they get older like you, they will be a bit of a neat freak. But that's a whole new conversation.
Right. Oh, good.
It is what it is. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been so great.
Oh, well, thank you, Tina. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I am so grateful for this conversation. I think we touched on so many different aspects of life in this short conversation, right? That's why I feel like we could talk for hours.
Yes, that was just great.
Confidence in Bloom is a celebration of self-love, a confirmation that even though you may not look like a screen star or a supermodel, they don't even look like that. You are an amazing, desirable, brilliant, gorgeous, talented woman. We can offer unconditional love to our partners, our children, our extended family, even our pets. It's high time we got out of our own way and learned to unconditionally love ourselves. My business, In Full Bloom Styling, offers an online course combined with one-on-one coaching in confidence building, personal branding, and creating your signature fashion look. Chic definitely does come in every shape. So if you want something to believe in, start with yourself. If you'd like to be a guest here on Confidence in Bloom, contact me through Instagram at infobloomstyling or by email at tina@infobloomstyling.com or through the Divas That Care website.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.